from the Ticats Audio Network, this is the CFL This Week with Bubba O'Neil.
A couple of teams have officially declared for the playoffs, but the races in the East and the West divisions are still alive and well. So while you determine who is your Grey Cup favorite, I'll also ask, who is the sleeper in the bunch? And while you're at it, who is the league's most outstanding player? This is the CFL This Week on the Ticats Audio Network. I'm your host, Bubba O'Neil. Well, you certainly got to love the amount of chatter and entertainment that the games have certainly been providing, and we're going to break it down on this week's podcast. And what I love it is the fact that we have these fellas and their backgrounds, and it's proven to me over the past that they never hold back. Tell it like it is. Now, if you're seeking daily coverage of the Canadian Football League on a short or long-term read, this fella is one of the best in the country. From the Canadian press stand, Ralph, always a pleasure to...
My pleasure as always.
I'll tell you, he is one of the league's top players turned broadcaster, and out in Edmonton, his hot takes are legendary on Sports 1440. Eddie Steele, always appreciate you.
Good to be with you guys. I look forward to this chat.
Well, speaking of legends, how honored are we to have former Hall of Fame voice of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Bob Irving? We got you out of retirement. Good to have you.
Well, I tell people I'm retired, but I'm still engaged, Bubba. I watch every game. I'm at every Bomber home game. Old habits die hard, so I'm retired, but boy, I'm still invested in what's going on in the CFL. I love it.
Well, I'm going to start right with you, Bob. Coming off their big win over Hamilton, have the Bombers taken top spot in your personal CFL power rankings, we'll call them.
Yeah, I don't know how they couldn't. Won 8 games in a row. I know Montreal still has a better record, and they've been sort of, lukewarm lately. And I think it's tough when you get as far ahead of the pack as they were to maintain that high intensity. But I go back to when the Bombers were 2-6, and everybody here was concerned about where they would wind up this season. Maybe they could sneak into the playoffs, and then they had those back-to-back wins over BC, including a 25-0 win here in Winnipeg. And that just got them going. They beat Hamilton, and they beat Saskatchewan back-to-back. They beat Edmonton back-to-back. And, yeah, they're looking great. They're playing the best football of any team in the league right now. So I think they have to be the number one in the power rankings, whatever that's worth.
Dan, your thoughts?
Ditto. I mean, I saw them up close and personal last week in Hamilton, and the second half was as dominant a performance on both sides of the ball that I've seen this year. And when that running game gets rolling with Brady Olivera, and we saw it on the weekend, that's a tough offense to stop. So good luck to anybody trying to face them going down the stretch.
Eddie, you're shaking your head too. You're in agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. Hesitantly, I am. I'll be honest. I'm a hometown hater. Every time I was a free agent to negotiate with Winnipeg, they lowballed me every time. Of course, every kid wants to play for their hometown team. But you can't deny what Winnipeg is doing, and they're well on their way to going to a 5th straight Grey Cup. The brand of football that they play, the physical style with the banging of the O-line, you don't need Zach Collaros to go and throw for 300 yards when they can run the ball the way they've run it so successfully with Brady. And then defense, they've been playing such physical defense, shutting teams down. How could you deny Winnipeg right now?
Well, you know who's going to deny it is Jason Moss. Because if he's watching this podcast right now, he's just thrown something at all of you. He cannot be happy. Eddie, why would you not say the defending Grey Cup champions who claim all season long and even going back to last year that they get no respect?
Yeah, I mean, it's very valid, the fact that they're not shown the respect they deserve because they are the defending champs. But there's just something about Montreal that I'm still, maybe it's me, but I'm not totally sold on, especially when I see Winnipeg play the way they've played en route to another Grey Cup. They've been to the last 4 of them, and unless Saskatchewan goes and beats BC in the playoffs, good luck to BC coming into Winnipeg, because I see there's no hope for a team coming into Winnipeg with the advantage they have at home getting past them. So when it comes to Montreal, though, we know how I feel about Cody. He got the monkey off his back. He did. But I'm still not totally sold that this guy is going to go out there and beat you. And he has been playing just average football lately.
All right, Dan, go ahead.
Oh, I'm not going to say he's been playing average when he's got a 70+% completion average. I think the question I have about Cody is whether he can stay healthy. And if he stays healthy, then I think he gives them their best shot. My concern with Montreal, though, is the fact that coming down the stretch, they don't have a running game that I can hang my hat on. And that's the one thing Winnipeg's got going right now. And just like Eddie said, they don't need Collaros to throw for 300 yards and 6 touchdowns in a game. It's nice that he can, and it's great when he does. But right now, you got to stop that offensive line. You got to stop that running game. I mean, they had the ball for over 38 minutes against Hamilton. And if you can't score if you don't have the ball. And so to me, that's the key. I mean, if we get to a Montreal Winnipeg Grey Cup under the dome in BC, then I'll give Montreal its due. But right now, from what everything we've been, all three of us have been told throughout the years, is in November it's the ground game that takes over on offense, and I like Winnipeg's ground game right now.
It's interesting what Eddie said about Cody Fajardo, and it's always been out there. Even last year when they won the Grey Cup, is he a tier 1 top level quarterback? I don't know what Cody has to do to prove that. He was great in the Grey Cup game. That's probably the game of his life. He played well when he was in Saskatchewan. There was nothing wrong with his production there. But there's always been this nagging, well, we're not sure about Cody Fajardo. I think
they won a Grey Cup.
I think what he has to do to eliminate all that conversation is win another one. Zach Collaros has been the quarterback of record now in 5 Grey Cup games, including the 2014 game, Bubba, when he was in Hamilton, and then the 4 here. And this might be his 6th coming up, which would put him among an elite level of quarterbacks. So, I think he's got more cachet than Cody Fajardo does. Montreal's got a great defense. I think we've forgotten a bit about them. They've been in a bye, they won one, lost one. They got so far ahead of everybody. They're still a team to be reckoned with. Let's never sell them. Their defense is outstanding.
Well, and they won how many games without Cody? They put Alexander in, and they went 3-0. So if Cody can't get it done or gets hurt, put Alexander in, and you know what? That offense still continues to roll. The thing I don't like about Montreal's offense right now is Mack is hurt. Philpott's gone, and damn, those are 2 pretty good players. You put that. If those 2 guys come back, then I give them. I'll give them all their due. And if you give Cody a full complement of receivers, 2 potentially 1,000 yard receivers to play with, plus Cole Speaker, I'll put that against anybody.
Philpott's done for the year, though, isn't he, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I thought Mac was as well.
Is he? I thought he was on the 6th game. Now, he could very well be. I thought they put him on the 6th game with the thought that maybe he could come back.
When you talk about those receivers and what they mean, let me just add this. Back when the season began, the Bombers lost Kenny Lawler and Dalton Schoen early in the season, the first 2 games of the year, and their offense really struggled. Zach Collaros struggled without receivers that he could trust. And so you take those 2 guys away from Cody Fajardo, that's a really big deal. Really big deal.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
But wasn't that one of the strengths of Montreal last year en route to winning the Grey Cup, Eddie, is the fact that they were able to plug and play, and guys like Speaker did step up. And we could see that this year. And to the sort of Zach, and yes, you're right. Zach his resume is putting him into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about that. You'd be foolish anyone to argue that. But we're looking at this year, with the exception of a 6-touchdown, 500-yard performance against, I believe it was Edmonton, he hasn't been that good. I don't think, and he didn't have to be that good last week against Montreal, where I think Fajardo has actually been outplayed him if you want to stack them up. Is that not fair to say?
Yeah, that is absolutely fair to say. You look at Zach's numbers, like you alluded to, other than that 6-touchdown game, I think before that he had 8 touchdowns, 13 interceptions on the season. Looking and making some questionable decisions in the process. The thing with Cody and Zach, when we look at the 2 of them, Cody's percentage is really high, as Dan had mentioned. But the one thing that Cody has still yet to kind of figure out, so to say, is the deep ball. And that's something that has always been kind of in question for him. So you certainly can have a high percentage if you're going to be chucking it deep, if you're going to be keeping it underneath and throwing it short to your receivers for sure. When Zach, I mean, his year, you don't need him to be great. You really don't, especially down the stretch here. I was very surprised early in the year with the Bombers. Their O-line struggled a little bit, especially in pass protection. That has totally been shored up now. And Zach is having the time back there to be able to make his reads and be able to find the receivers that he wants to.
Yeah, I think Eddie's hit on it there. The first half of the season, there's no question that Zach Collaros wasn't the same quarterback we've watched for a long, long time. And there were many reasons for it. Injuries, the O-line was struggling. Zach couldn't trust his receivers, but that's all gone now. The O-line's playing great. He's got Kenny Lawler back and rolling. He's got Dembski, Ontario, the rookie, has really come to the fore. Their running game, of course, as you know, is awesome. So, Collaros he's driving the bus very nicely now. He doesn't have to throw for big numbers, and he loves to throw deep. We all know that, and they've kind of reined him in a little bit. Hey, let's just stick to the bread and butter stuff. We can win the game without you throwing 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think he's playing as well now. And we're talking about right now, okay? The first half, yeah, they struggled. The whole team did. But right now, he's playing as well as you could want any quarterback to play.
Okay, Dan, if Winnipeg, and we can settle on this, that Winnipeg and Montreal are sort of the teams to beat in their respective divisions, and that the chances are they could represent the East and the West in the Grey Cup, but that may be looking too far. Other than that, Dan, which team, and if you could pick maybe if you want to pick one team or a team in each division, would you consider a sleeper, a dangerous team to fear?
In the East, I would say Toronto, only because I'm starting to see a lot of the 2023 Montreal Alouettes in the 2024 Toronto Argonauts, and I'm seeing a lot of the 2024 Toronto Argonauts the 2023 Toronto Argonauts in the Montreal Alouettes. Montreal's going to go into the playoffs as the prohibitive favorite in the East, the team that all three of us are going to probably agree should go to the Grey Cup. And I just remember what Montreal did to Toronto last year in the East Final in Toronto. So if Toronto can get past Ottawa, and that's an if, but I like Toronto's chances against Montreal better than I do Ottawa's chances against Montreal. Having said that, I still think I would take Montreal to go. In the West, BC, maybe Nathan Rourke shows us that he's Nathan Rourke and can pull off the prohibitive upset to get BC into a home Grey Cup, but I don't see it based on what we've seen so far.
Go ahead, Eddie.
Well, I'll jump in on that.
Okay,
guys.
Bob, go ahead.
I like Toronto too. I think that's a team. It's a dangerous team. Chad Kelly, I think, is taken a long time to come and get back to where he wants to be, but man, he's capable of being a very, very good quarterback. And they've got a winning sort of feeling after the great year they had last year. It's a much different team. They've had a lot of change, but I'm with Dan. I would favor Toronto over Ottawa to get to the East Final. And in the West, I don't know what to make of BC. When they brought Nathan Rourke back, I think they upset the chemistry on that team. Not wanting to, but I think it did. And so now you've got this Rourke, Vernon Adams thing going on. Adams was on the route to becoming the most outstanding player in the league. Now he's a backup, for heaven's sakes. And so I still think the Lions are dangerous because they do have two quarterbacks who are really, really good. Saskatchewan is the team I watch out for in the West. As long as Trevor Harris is healthy, he's the key guy. As long as he's healthy, they've got a chance. I think the Riders have a chance to be a tough team to beat in the West Final.
I'm with you on that, Bob. The Riders would be my team out of the West, too, because Trevor Harris, he gives you an ability. When he's on, he is a tough quarterback to stop. He's a tough quarterback to sack because he gets the ball out so fast. He makes his reads really fast. And they play a motivated style of football over there under Corey Mace. They had their lull during the midseason, but Corey Mace has really done a good job in terms of getting that defense ramped up. Their playmakers are making plays. Roland Milligan is having a heck of a season, leading the league in tackles, leading the league in special teams tackles. That's impressive. And I got to say about BC, I think personally, it's a really good thing that Nathan Rourke didn't come back and set the league on fire. I think it gives the league a lot of credibility for how hard it is to play CFL professional football. And you can't just come, even though you're in an NFL training camp, you can't just come and just set it on fire. It takes time. And I think that has been a good thing across the league overall. And it did, no doubt about it, upset the chemistry. How could it not? You had Vernon Adams, who's been playing lights out. I mean, other than that Winnipeg shutout. And, you're all of a sudden, he's relegated to the bench and he doesn't see the field again. Moving out to the east, I would say Toronto as well. Gives him a good opportunity. But I love me some Bobby Dice. Bob, a Winnipeg guy. Hey, Bobby Irving. I love Bobby Dice, man. And he's got that team motivated too.
Yeah.
It's interesting with Ottawa. I think they hit the bye week at the perfect time with terms of injuries and some questionable play again, a game against Saskatchewan. I think there was some pressure that came from at least to the organization from the fans in that contest. But Eddie, if I can go back to you with the Rough Riders here, we're talking about a team, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that going into this season had lost every game after Labor Day on back-to-back seasons. What has the head coach done there? What has Corey Mace done that is so much different than everyone else?
I don't know exactly what he's done differently. I know that as a head coach, when you're in those rooms, he wasn't there the past 2 years, so that's all old to him. He has no part in that whatsoever. So he can come and bring his new ideas and his new thoughts. And when we're talking about they haven't won a game post-Labor Day the past 2 years, which is just remarkable. It's a remarkable stat. You can come out to the fellas and say, this means nothing. We're in the here and now. As Bob had alluded to, the Bombers, they weren't playing good earlier. But let's talk about right now. And this CFL is such a week-to-week league. And it doesn't matter what happened last week. It doesn't matter what happened 2 Labor Days ago. You got to worry about getting your wins now. And Corey Mace, being a former player, I think he understands how to get that message across, that it is so week to week, and you can't stay too low on the lows. You can't stay too high on the highs.
Dan, Ottawa, what's going on there?
Wish I knew. Wish I knew. You know what? I mean, they won the early games, the close games, and I don't know. I mean, Drew Brown's been hurt the last little bit. That never hurts. Never helps, rather. Wycrell Armstead gave them a running game, and he was gone for disciplinary reasons, and I just haven't seen that running game. I keep coming back to the same darn thing, and that's the run, especially in October and November. And if you can't do it, then you become one-dimensional, and I think you become a lot easier to defend against. And but I'll tell you, they've got the weapons. I mean, Dominique Rhymes is a great receiver. Pimpleton had the great start and has cooled off a bit. They've got Dedman returning. I mean, they've got all the pieces there, and they've got a very solid defense. Although they're without Pickett, which I think is a big loss for them at this point in time. But you know what? I just think maybe they're going to be at home, and they've been doing well at home. Maybe they recapture their swagger down the stretch and give us a lot more to think about going into the playoffs. But I mean, they're in the playoffs now, so that part of it's off, or is that pressure's off. Now they just sort of fine tune and try and go in on with some momentum, so that if and when they do play Toronto or Hamilton, I guess we have to incorporate Hamilton right now because they're still mathematically involved. That they want to get second, have home field, get some momentum, win the semi, and go into Montreal on a roll.
I would say Ottawa's had some injuries at linebacker that have hurt them, and then the quarterback position has been. Look, we had Drew Brown in Winnipeg for 3 years, and we think he has tremendous upside, and he showed that early in the season. He's had some great games. He just looks like a guy who will lead a team from that position. That's the impression I get anyway. But he's also had some games where he struggled. This is his first full year playing quarterback, so I think he's a critically important component. He's got to come out. I don't think Jeremiah Mazzoli can do it for them. Drew Brown's got to come out and play his A game if Ottawa is going to do anything in the playoffs.
For the first time since Calgary and Edmonton have been in the Canadian Football League, and we'll parallel that to 1949, guys, neither team will be in the postseason. I do the math, it's 75 years. What a streak.
Yeah.
Eddie, is this the most impressive streak in league history? And if not, do you got another one? Because I think because it's never happened before, I never even thought about it. And then now that this is being reported, it's amazing to me.
It is impressive. It is impressive, not in a good way. But I think what's more impressive, and I wasn't around for the glory days, but Edmonton, of course, 5 straight Grey Cups. But what's even more impressive to me in modern age football with the 1-year contracts, Winnipeg is well on their way to going to a 5th straight Grey Cup. And to be able to do that in this climate of the CFL, that is so remarkable to me. Words really can't explain how great that truly is. Even if you haven't won every Grey Cup, to get there 5 times, I'm jealous.
Well, I don't think when the season began, anybody would have expected Calgary and Edmonton both to miss the playoffs. At the same time, we know Edmonton was coming off some tough years, and Calgary was they were 6-12, I think, last year. They made the playoffs, but with a poor record, and so they had kind of a shaky foundation from what we could see. So I'm not shocked that they both have missed it based on what our expectations would be going into the season. But the 75 years thing, Bubba, that's I wasn't aware of that either. I mean, I know they've had great success. John Huffnagel's time in Calgary, all they did was win and make the playoffs, and Dickinson followed up, and of course Edmonton forever with that 78-82 Norm Kimball, Hugh Campbell team, and since then they've been sort of the landmark franchise in the CFL until recent years. But for both of them to miss, not a surprise when we knew what we knew about the teams going into the season. But when you think about it, it's something. 75 years, wow.
Bob, and you called a lot of games for a lot of years. I mean, I know, again, this is now the first time it's happened. Do you even remember it being close or someone saying, hey, this has never happened before?
Yeah, I think Calgary had some years back I started doing the Bomber games in 1973, and the fans here hated Edmonton because from 78 to 82, when they won those Grey Cups, the Bombers had really good teams, but they couldn't solve Edmonton. And then Edmonton was good for so many. Calgary had some ups and downs, but I think both teams have had great success over the years. To see them both now really going through a tough time, although Edmonton looks to me like they're on the right track. They really do. They got to figure out the quarterback, Eddie. What are they going to do about that one?
Talk about mishandling. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and look, I'm a fan of Macbeth. I think he's really good, but Trey Ford's either your guy or he isn't, right? Yeah, it's totally. One or the other.
Totally.
So going forward, I'm curious to see how they sort that out and who runs the team. I don't know what they're going to do, what the new owner's going to do about the GM and the coach. Who knows?
Yeah, it starts up. They need a president, and they're talking. Word is in the next month they're going to announce a president. The issue with the Elks in their board the past 5 years, they've done everything backwards. They've hired a head coach, then a president, and then the GM. It's all Mickey Mouse. You got to have a president, then a GM, then a coach, then you can pick your quarterback. And they haven't done so. And the whole Trey Ford debacle, they've botched it. Obviously, it was reported early in the year. I heard from Chris Jones and Jarius personally, he refused to go in for packages. I was a defensive tackle. I ate double teams for a living. When I hear someone refuse to go in for packages because it's not the role they wanted, I don't have any time for that. That's not team, in my opinion.
Eddie, just because I'm so curious about this, Trey's a free agent, is he not, at the end of the year?
Yeah. So is his brother here in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
His brother will be in the NFL.
Tyrell's not going anywhere, I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be taken care of.
Well, they got a lot of people they got to pay here.
Anyway, wow, interesting. But
Yeah,
Eddie, do you
I think he goes south again.
He'll get an NFL.
He tried that once already. I'm not sure he'll do it again. Anyway, we'll see.
Well, because he was with the Packers, was he not?
I'll give you 7 interceptions why he'll get another shot.
Oh,
Yeah, he'll get a shot, but he might be wasting his time. Anyway, we'll see.
Well, that's for him to decide, not you, me, and Eddie.
We'll soon find out at the end of the season. Good discussion, that's for sure. But yeah. Eddie, what do you think he does? Because I mean, you look around the league. There's not a lot of places where there is the opportunity, we'll say, to start.
Absolutely.
Do you think Edmonton is where he stays?
Well, there needs to be a major reclamation on the relationship out here. And who knows what happens with coaching staff. The thing is, a lot of people talk about Jarius Jackson and there being a disconnect between him and the quarterback. Take that all out. Jarius Jackson and Edmonton, they have the number 1 offense in the CFL, despite the quarterback controversy, either Macbeth or Trey Ford. So Jarius Jackson has done what he needs to do despite whoever is playing quarterback. There's only a limited number of jobs available in the offseason. There's 9 teams, and if we look around, 6 of 9 teams have their quarterback in place. So who is going to want to go and take that shot on Trey, and who's going to want to pay Trey the money that he's probably going to be looking for?
Well, let me just say one more thing about that. Trey Ford is such an intriguing story. He's a phenomenal athlete. We've all seen that. But he's an unfinished product as a passer. And you've got to be a good passer. I don't care how much you can run. You've got to be a decent passer to succeed in the league. And I don't know, the only way you're going to find out is you're going to play him. Just play him, right? He's been in the league long enough. Somebody's going to have to say, he's our guy. Maybe Calgary does. I don't know. He's our guy, and we're going to stick him in there and live and die with him and see what happens.
It's so refreshing, Bob, to hear someone else say that, because that's the drum I've been beating. This guy's a great athlete, but you got to be a quarterback, a passer first in the CFL. It's a passing league. And the thing is, he is an unfinished product. Who is going to waste a coach's job? They got to win games. So is a coach going to be willing to lose games to develop a quarterback? No, this is pro football. We don't have time to develop. We got to win right now.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Dan, let me just throw you this here on the other side in southern Alberta. I guess it was last week. A reporter like yourself asked a simple question to Dave Dickinson about his future, and he lit him up. He lit him up good. What are your thoughts about what's going on in Calgary?
Well, first of all, I will preface this and I will show my bias. I love Dave to death. He is one of my favorite CFL coaches to deal with. Give him a good question, he'll give you a decent answer. Having said that, I wrote back in May and June that a scenario could manifest itself that Dave, the GM, has to make a decision on Dave, the head coach, because there's a reason why less and less people are doing both jobs. You need 2 people, in my humble opinion. You need the GM to be the bad guy, and you need the head coach to be the good guy. I don't think you can do both, because all of a sudden you're forced to talk out of both sides of your mouth. And the player, Eddie can attest to this, the player says, wait a minute, you praised me on the field, but in the office, you're undervaluing me. You're shortchanging me. I don't think you can do both. And so I'm not surprised. I'll backtrack. I'm surprised the 2 Alberta teams are out. Be honest, I took Edmonton to finish 3rd in my preseason pool. I thought MBT would be the missing link, and I thought he would be able to tutor Trey and yada yada yada. But no, I'm not surprised that Dave Dickinson is in this situation. We saw it last year that 6-12 got you into the playoffs, and you got in the playoffs because Saskatchewan, as Bob said, did not win a game past Labor Day. So we saw the writing on the wall, and I didn't see them get I didn't see them get much better in the off season. So where we are, I'm not surprised. I think he was going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And if he has to make that decision, there's only one decision to make, and that's to move upstairs.
If I may, I think the proof is in the pudding for the experiment of being GM, head coach, O coordinator, D coordinator, whatever it may be. Chris Jones in Edmonton the past few years, Dave in Calgary, and out in Hamilton with Orlando. It's proven that it's not really a successful recipe when you wear this many hats in the CFL.
Yeah, I'll say here in Winnipeg, guys, too, there was, 2 or 3 years ago, there was talk about O'Shea becoming the GM and coach of the Blue Bombers, and he basically said, hey, I got enough to do as the head coach. It was never offered to him, but there were rumblings about that. But he sort of pushed it off to the side and said, no, look, this head coaching position it's as time consuming as any position in pro sport. And to be the GM and the coach it's untenable. It's untenable.
I think a great example is just happening in Hamilton with Chris Jones. Eddie, he's really turned around a defense for the Tiger Cats mid-season, which it looks nothing like what we saw earlier this year. And it just goes to show you, as a coach, as he focuses on just the coaching as opposed to acquiring players, he's a different guy.
He really is. I saw something on Twitter, and it really made me laugh, and it was so true. And it said, is Chris Jones both the best in-season firing and hiring that the CFL has ever had? Because it's true.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this is an interesting question. It's so simple. But, Bob, who's the favorite to win the CFL Most Outstanding Player?
If you look strictly at numbers, and we all love quarterbacks. Well, Eddie doesn't love quarterbacks. He loves to knock them on their ass. But if we looked at numbers and you didn't know what the record was, and the fact that he'd been benched for a couple of games, it would be Levi Mitchell. Because his numbers, he's going to throw for 5,000 yards. Come on, give me a break. And he's looked great of late, but it can't be him. It's got to be Brady Olivera. I'm sorry. He's missed a game and a half, and he's rushed for, I get the numbers here, 1,254 yards. He's got 400 receiving. You guys have seen him play. He's a one-man wrecking crew. He is just a powerhouse, unlike we had Andrew Harris here for a number of years, terrific back, but not the same style. Brady will run you over, and he's also got some moves, a change of direction. He's a special athlete. He's a special athlete, and I think he is really the straw that stirs the drink out here for Winnipeg. So I know there'll be some discussion. Justin McInnes has big numbers as a receiver in BC. Trevor Harris has had a good year in Sask. Milligan, of course, will get some votes because he's been fantastic. I don't mean to undersell him. He's been terrific, but I don't know if a defensive back has ever been named the most outstanding player because the offensive guys, sorry, I didn't get the love. To me, it's got to be Brady Olivera. We'll see.
Well, Bob, sorry, Eddie, Bob, just sticking with you there, because I've talked to people in Winnipeg that think Tyrell Ford is the most outstanding player. The voting may be split right there.
Yeah, well, no, Tyrell Ford's had a great year, but he's a cornerback, right? And there's nothing wrong with being a great cornerback, but again, I'm not sure a player at that position has ever received a nomination as most outstanding player, and I'd be surprised if it happened this time. The tough vote for the voters here in Winnipeg, and I'm not one of them, is do you give Brady both outstanding and Canadian, or do you sort of hand out the consolation prize to Tyrell Ford and name him the best Canadian? And I say consolation prize with the utmost respect for the great year he's had. He would deserve it. But Olivera he's the guy. If you're around this team and watch them play now in particular, he's a force. He's a force on this team, and he handles the ball an awful lot, as you guys know, 15, 20, 25 times a game.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Bob. It's really neat seeing Brady. I've known Brady going back. I started training him when he was in grade 9, when he was still playing with the North Winnipeg Nomads. So it's really cool to see the trajectory of his career. You can't really deny his numbers. Typically, MOP is an offensive award, except for when Solomon Aluminium won it. When it comes to Milligan, though, why I will make a strong case for him. He leads the league in 2 of 3 phases, defensive plays and special teams tackles. And that's pretty special. I know he's a DB. I don't know what his interception numbers are or fumbles and all that. But
I think he's up to 8 interceptions now.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize it was that high. So to lead the league in plays made on defense, but then special team plays as well, because you got to think, when you're leading the league in special teams tackles, you're going down there, making a tackle, and then lining back up and playing defense. That is hard to do, man. There's not many cats out there that can do it at the level that he's done it. So that would be the reason I make the case, is because he's leading the league in 2 of 3 phases.
Yeah, I can't disagree. He's had a great year. It'd be intriguing to see how the voting goes. I don't know, again, if a defensive back would get enough votes from the voters to be a most outstanding player over a running back who's having a sensational year, but we'll see.
Bo Levi, the whole Bo Levi thing. Hey, Bubba, we can have a good chuckle about that.
Well, I'll throw this at you. I mean, I'm not going to disrespect what Milligan's done, but if you're even looking at a defensive player to take MOP, in my mind, you got to look at Beverett in Montreal. Period.
Wow.
No doubt. I mean, this guy, he's leading in defensive plays. Just checked. He's among the league leaders in defensive tackles. He doesn't come off the field in passing downs. And to me, him and Darnell Sankey are 1-2 in my linebacking core. I would take Beverett over any other defensive player. Period. End of story. In my mind. No, it's not even close in my mind.
He's terrific, and he's had a great year. He's just.
Yep. He's been
it
consistent.
seems like every time Montreal's on defense, he's doing something to disrupt the play.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm looking at him stepping up is the reason why Darnell's only second in tackles. So I'm you know what, I love Darnell. He's my go-to if I need somebody to say something. But when it comes to play on the field, Tyrese is. I'm not going to disrespect what Milligan's done, because what you guys said is bang on. He's leading in interceptions. He's leading in special teams tackles. That tells me something about the athlete. But you want to talk about a defensive player who's who should be getting consideration for MOP? To me, it's Tyrese Beverett.
Yep.
So what about Olivera to you? Is he the favorite?
Oh, no doubt. Not even close. He's the favorite, period. I will just jump on Bob's coattails and just echo everything he said. We sat there and we watched him last week, Bubs, and he was a one-man wrecking crew. Everybody in the stadium knew in the second half he was going to run the ball.
Yeah.
Everybody. And he set season highs in carries and in yards and scored a big touchdown for them. And the more you give that man the ball, it's to me, it's like what a running back wants. Just give me the ball. The more I get it, the more in flow I get with the game. And this guy was dynamic in the second half, especially.
Yeah, his yards after contact is impressive. I don't know that I've seen a running back as powerful as this guy is. He runs over people. He doesn't look to make you miss. He wants to run you over. And he will do it. You should see him. He's a bundle of muscle and sinew.
He's a short, little, thick guy.
Yeah, people say, how does he not get hurt? I said, you should see his body.
Well, ask Eddie. It's always better to be the hammer than the nail, right?
Oh, yeah. And then once you see this, you know he's going.
Well, guys, his signature might have been that. I mean, you talk about yards after contact, and I mean, I think it was someone will fact check me here, but I think it was like a 14-yard touchdown pass a couple of weeks ago against Edmonton. That little dump off from Caleros, and he spins and he turns and he bumps off a tackle and he just keeps driving into the end zone. One of the most impressive short touchdown passes I've ever seen in my life. It was he's outstanding. But I will throw you this, guys. His numbers don't stack up to what he did last year, I don't think. How did he not win it last year? And I know Chad Kelly had an outstanding year.
Well, Chad was 16-2. I mean, and he led I think Brady, I don't know. You get a quarterback or a running back, who are you going to pick?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is you could give Brady the top Canadian, which is, look, I've voted on these awards for a million years. I'm not saying this was my mindset, but I was convinced last year Kelly would get the MOP and Brady would get the top Canadian, and a lot of voters would do it simply to sort of hand out the goodies.
Because Brady deserves something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But no, and this year I would argue he's the top Canadian and the MOP. Period.
Yeah. Keep
Eddie,
one
how
thing
would
in
you have
mind,
tackled him?
How would I? I tell this to guys all the time, and I actually tell Brady this, actually. Go low. You can't run without your legs. I see guys go high on him, and he just bounces them off. I don't know why you just don't wrap the legs up. And I can say, people say, "Oh, easier said than done." No, I've lived in the trenches. You just wrap the legs up and hold on. He can't run anywhere. But when you go high, you're not gonna have success. And you see DBs always go high with their shoulder, and no, you're never gonna get them down that way.
But Eddie, it's harder to go low on him, isn't it? Because of the way he runs, he kind of, he gets down low when he's running too. And I hear what you're saying, but
and he's short. He's short too, so you really got to get low. You really got to get low.
Well, I'd be leery about going low on anybody now because everybody likes to hurdle. How many guys have you seen just go for air?
That's
it's like,
true.
damn. I'd rather bounce off the guy and see, I hit him. Then go
that
low and grab.
On tape, though,
no, but but you grab air and it's like, oops, sorry. I don't know, Bob. Does Brady hurdle? I don't know if he can. He's already low to the ground.
Yeah, and he's the thing. Bubba talked about that run against Edmonton. That was about 25 yards. Bubba, the balance he showed, like he's got. Yeah. He's not just powerful. He's got great balance. He's got a nice little change of direction. He's more than a battering ram. He's an athlete too. You know what I'm saying, right? He's not just a big, strong guy who'll run you over. He's athletic. He's a special player. He really is.
He doesn't have that breakaway speed. Like he's not going to break a 50-yarder on you, but he'll constantly. If you're living in 2nd and 3, you're winning.
Yeah.
Well, it's to Dan's point. You're right. He doesn't have the breakaway speed, but yes, in a second half of the game, as the Tiger Cats found out, he just keeps coming and just keeps coming and keeps coming.
He just wears. I really think he just wears you down.
He just wears you down. He's just as you said, Dan. It was
you're on
tough
defense.
To watch.
Yeah, you're on defense. You go, oh, come on, enough, no more. Come on.
I will say this though, fellas, we're giving Brady a lot of love. We gave Andrew Harris a lot of love. These guys aren't nothing without the offensive line. And the Winnipeg's offensive line has been different. Like ever since O'Shea came there, and it was about 2016, I would say, they have been playing different football than any offensive line I've ever seen or played against. They are physical.
2014 when he arrived.
They try and displace you. But when they really started to play bully football, it was 16. Like that's really when they started to bully teams around.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, and Mike believes in that. You gotta out tough the other guy. You gotta knock him over before he knocks you over. Mike's a real bread and butter guy, former linebacker.
Yeah, totally.
With that said, that was an offensive line that was was being criticized earlier in the year. It appeared that Stanley Bryant's too old.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Then Neufeld got hurt. Like it just seemed like they weren't the same. And we're talking about them the same way we have year after year. Okay, guys, here are the games for this week. Toronto at Winnipeg as we speak about the Bombers. Edmonton at Calgary, the Alberta Bowl. BC at Saskatchewan and Ottawa at Montreal. Bob Irving, the game of the week is?
Well, if it's not Toronto-Winnipeg, it's got to be BC-Saskatchewan. I think for us here in Winnipeg, it's the Toronto-Winnipeg game because the Bombers can clinch first if they win the game, and the Argos are still fighting for, a spot a position in the playoff lineup. But that BC-Saskatchewan game is likely going to determine second place in the West, and if Saskatchewan still has a chance to finish first, they have to win that game too, and they do still have a chance. So that's probably the game that I would pick ahead of Winnipeg. Toronto, but just barely.
Dan?
I would agree with you, Bob. I'll agree with you with everything you just said. I would think that Saskatchewan-BC game would be the game of the week for my viewing, just because what's on the line, really. And there's stuff on the line in the other games, but the magnitude is a little more enhanced in the BC-Saskatchewan game.
Yeah, I'll make it 3. I think BC Saskatchewan's my pick because there's definitely a lot more on the line. I think regardless of what happens in Winnipeg, the Bombers to me finish first, whether it's this week or next week. And And in my mind, Hamilton or Toronto finishes third in the West or in the East, either this week or next week, or maybe next week when they play Ottawa. But yeah, I think there's a lot on the line out in BC.
Dan, the interesting thing to me, and I believe this game is being played in Regina, is we'll be watching Nathan Rourke play in that environment. We talked about him earlier, and for the first time, because we just didn't see that over that 10-game sample size in 22, where he's showing signs of frustration and just sort of he's always been such a quote a nice guy, but we're seeing him get angry. We're seeing him kind of slamming his helmet a little bit. He's just not been that cool and calm guy that we saw in 22. And being we all know it, we've been there. It is a tough place to play, especially when the fans are invested as they are right now in that team.
Yeah, and all your points, and then like the other two gentlemen said, given what's on the line within that game too. So the thing that I don't like about BC is that they've been very inconsistent up front on the offensive line, and I'm still waiting for that to happen. And Nathan Rourke is a very, very good quarterback. We saw that. But if he doesn't get protection, if he doesn't get time to look downfield and to set up, then he's maybe he's the quarterback that he's been showing because of that. So I just think there's some concerns I have about the offensive line that make me think that's something that Saskatchewan can attack and go after on the weekend.
Well, but let me just say one more thing, too. We talked about the environment and atmosphere in Regina. Well, the game here against Toronto sold out again, another sellout for the Bombers, 33,000. Yeah. This is the toughest place in the league to play. It's not even close with the crowd. Chad Kelly's never played in this environment. Last year when the Alouettes came here, he didn't play because they had first place clinched. And I'm not saying he can't handle it because he's played a lot of big-time college games and all the rest of it, but playing in this environment will be a new experience for him, I guarantee. And it'd be interesting to see how he deals with it.
Guys, just Ottawa, Montreal, too. The importance, Dan, for Ottawa to again, Montreal have kind of laid down there where they are going to finish in the East. But the importance for Ottawa to bounce back is huge to me right now.
Very. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'd want to be in their situation going into Montreal. I think Montreal, we know Montreal is going to finish first, but I honestly think they're going to want to send the message to Ottawa that if you come back here in November, don't even bother type thing. And I just think Montreal is going to have a lot to play for. I get that Coach Moss is probably going to want to rest a few guys and maybe Alexander plays quarterback the second half or what have you, but I do believe in the mindset that they want to win this game. They'll want to protect their standing, and I just think right now Ottawa's got a lot going wrong with it, and trying to resolve your issues against the defending league champions. It's not an ideal situation in my book.
There's been a saying for years in these parts here about for the Tiger Cats that if they're not going to make the playoffs. And this could be the mantra for the year is that if they don't make the playoffs, at least they swept the Argonauts.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Yeah.
Eddie,
will that be the situation? But what good is that in November when you're
Hey, quiet. Hey, Dad, stop that.
Come on, Dad. Let them have their flowers.
Let us enjoy this, please.
They can look at the Ballard Trophy every day. So,
Eddie, though, will this be the feeling for Edmonton?
Yeah.
If they knock off, if they just one more shot to Calgary.
That's exactly it. Jarius was on the radio station this morning talking about that, and he said, the one kind of glimmer of hope here is that they can go and beat down Calgary again, and they've beat Calgary every time this season. So, give the city of Edmonton something to feel uplifted about because we know the rivalry. Edmonton hates Calgary and vice versa. So if you can go and step on their throat a little bit more, then by all means.
Hey, Bob, it must be nice not to have these consolation prizes to have to worry about, eh?
Well, that's true, but there's nothing that makes Bomber fans happier than beating Saskatchewan either, and vice versa with Saskatchewan, Winnipeg. I know the fans in Saskatchewan tell the writers, whatever you do this season, beat Winnipeg. And the feeling here is, to some degree, it's the same. So the rivalry is phenomenal. If they play in the West Final, that's going to be electric.
Guys, you guys have been electric on this podcast. Thank you so much for your participation, your opinions. Bob, with his expertise, veteran, we love having you back, Bob. It's outstanding. Dan, always a great to have you. Eddie, I know you're just going to needle you a little bit every once in a while. No. Hey, by the way, Eddie, how come you're not wearing your overalls?
The panel never gave me any.
Guys, if Eddie, if people want to chat you up a little bit on social media, where can they find you?
Yeah, on Twitter primarily. Type in my name, Eddie Steele. That's the easiest way to find me.
Dan?
Ditto X Danrell at Danrell CP.
Bob, I see you're stirring it up on social media, Bob, still to this day.
Yeah, I'm on X or Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I know it's X. And if you asked me how people would access me, I couldn't tell you how they access me. I don't know how it works. I just know that I'm on it, and every now and then I throw out an opinion. So
you like to get the masses going.
He does. He likes it. I love it.
That's all I know about it.
He gets them going. I love it. Hey, guys, a reminder, the Ticats Audio Network is certainly where you want to be for the Tiger Cats. That late push to the playoffs. It's still alive, folks. Lots of daily content on the build-up to game day at Tim Hortons Field Friday night. And we'll have you next Friday night, actually, and we'll have you all primed up to kickoff. Party starts at 5:30 with game day as the black and gold meet the Stamps on the Ticats Audio Network. Once again, Dan, Bob, Eddie, really appreciate your participation. Fans, always, it's a great podcast because of you as well, too. Thank you so much for checking in every week on the CFL This Week. I'm Bubba O'Neil on the Ticats Audio Network.